It was the sound of her footsteps, slow, echoing through the dusty marble corridor, that made the officers turn and stare. Her sandals slapped the floor with a rhythm too calm for someone who had just been violated. But her eyes carried a storm. Beneath her black hijab, soaked with afternoon sweat, her jaw was clenched, and in her right hand she held something that didn't belong in a woman's grasp inside a police station, a used condom, knotted tightly at the top, sealed inside a clear plastic sandwich bag. The air in the room thickened. A few officers stopped writing. One leaned back in his squeaky chair, smirking. The others exchanged glances. No one asked her name. It was 3:07 p.m., Addis Ababa. The sky outside had turned silver with approaching rain. But inside this cracked-walled police station in Kirkos sub-city, time seemed to move slower. The walls were once painted white, now stained with the yellow of old sweat and nicotine. On the wall above the front desk, a faded poster read, "Justice for all, Mabete Lahulume." The irony hung in the air like the scent of old teff and stale cigarette smoke. The woman stepped forward. Her voice was soft but sharp, like a blade under cloth. "I want to report a rape." Silence. Then laughter, not the loud, belly-shaking kind. No, it was the cruel kind. The kind that starts in the nose and spreads to the lips, meant to humiliate, not entertain. An older officer with gray hair and chewing chat leaned forward and pointed at the bag. "You brought your evidence?" He scoffed, eyebrows raised. "This isn't a hospital, sister." She said nothing. Her fingers gripped the bag tighter. A younger officer behind him, barely 25, clicked his tongue and muttered, "Why didn't you throw it away? Or flush it like a normal person?" "Because I'm not normal anymore," she answered. "I was raped by someone who believes no one will believe me. I'm here to prove him wrong." That shut them up briefly, but only briefly. Another officer, this one larger, stood and approached. His uniform was too tight around the stomach and he walked like someone used to pushing people around. His badge read Sergeant Lemma. "Sit," he ordered. She did, still clutching the bag. Her name was Rahel Tesfaye, 28, nurse, single, no children. She lived alone in a small rental in Lideta, walked to work every day, and sent money to her mother in Bahir Dar every month. She wasn't fragile. She wasn't confused. She knew exactly what had happened to her, and she knew exactly who did it. The room tensed as she began her statement. She had been invited to a development fundraiser 3 nights ago at a luxury hotel downtown. It was organized by a local NGO, but funded by the office of Councillor Menber Getahun, a charismatic, wealthy, and widely respected politician known for building water wells and giving speeches about empowering women. Rahel had gone as part of her hospital delegation. She had admired Menber for years, watched his videos, liked his social media posts, quoted him in her conversations. When he approached her at the event and offered her a private tour of a new mobile health unit his office had funded, she felt honored. Instead, he drove her to an empty guest house in Bole, claimed the vehicle with the unit was parked behind it. Once inside, he locked the door. Her smile faded. He didn't shout. He didn't beat her. He was calm, cold, professional. He told her she could scream if she wanted. Nobody would hear. He told her she should be grateful to be chosen. When it was over, he stood, adjusted his belt, and tossed the condom toward the trash bin. Missed. Then he told her, very politely, to leave. Rahel didn't speak of it for 2 days. She didn't eat. She didn't sleep. She kept seeing his face, his calm expression, like someone finishing a meeting. But then, something inside her changed. Not rage, not sorrow, precision. She returned to that house the next morning. The door was locked. The place was quiet, but the condom was still there, on the floor behind the sofa, untouched. She picked it up with gloves, sealed it, hid it in her freezer, and today she brought it here. The officers didn't know what to do with her. Or the condom. "You know how expensive DNA tests are?" Shalema asked, scratching his chin. "And even if it's him, so what? He'll say it was consensual. Who's going to believe your story over his?" Rahel stood again. Her voice shook now, not from fear, but from fury barely restrained. "Then let me pay for it myself," she said. "Just take the sample officially. Chain of custody." "I already called a private lab." More laughter. "Who taught you those words, Iwadishalehu?" sneered another officer. "Chain of custody?" "Television," she answered. "And common sense." She dropped the bag on the counter. It landed with a soft slap. The air was heavy now. The older officer finally sighed, stood up, and went to get the lab request form. As he scribbled reluctantly, Rahel looked around the room. Not one of them looked her in the eye. 3 weeks later, Rahel's world changed, not because the truth came out, but because people finally had to listen. The private DNA lab results had arrived. The envelope was slim, the paper inside simple. But what it carried was heavy, dangerous, like a silent weapon. She sat alone on the wooden bench outside the police station, the brown envelope clutched tightly in her lap. The sun was high, baking the cracked concrete. People passed by without noticing her, just another tired woman waiting in Addis. But inside the envelope, one line of printed words had the power to burn down a man's career, maybe even his life. Match found, 99.98% certainty. Sample matches Counselor Menber Getahun. No doubts. No second guesses. Rahel didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just stood up, pushed the heavy glass door open, and walked into the same police station that once mocked her. This time, they didn't laugh. She dropped the envelope onto the desk. "You have your proof. Now do your job." The officers shifted in their seats. Sergeant Lemma scratched his neck. The younger ones glanced around nervously. One picked up the envelope like it was toxic. He opened it slowly, scanned the page, and suddenly went pale. We'll need to speak to our supervisor," Lemma mumbled, rising to his feet. Rahel leaned forward, voice low and firm. "Your supervisor won't change the science." But Addis wasn't built for justice. It was built for power, and power knew how to hide. The story spread like wildfire, first through whispers, then through posts. Someone leaked a photo of Rahel leaving the lab. Another leaked part of the report. Then a screenshot appeared on Facebook. By sunset, the name Menber Getahun was trending on Ethiopian Twitter with the words "rape allegation" beside it. The backlash was instant, but not against Menbere. She's lying. Women like this just want attention. Where's the video proof? Menber is a good man. He builds schools. This is politics. Someone is trying to destroy him. On the morning radio shows, loud men with louder opinions questioned her story. Why go to a guest house with a man alone? Why not report it immediately? Why keep the condom? That's not normal. Her name was everywhere. Her face was nowhere. She had stayed quiet. Never did interviews. Never spoke online. But they found her anyway. Strangers came to her hospital. Patients began whispering. Her supervisor called her into his office and politely asked her to take a few days off for peace. Her landlord called next. Said the neighbors were uncomfortable with the attention. That it would be better if she moved. The city wasn't pushing her forward. It was pushing her out. At night, Rahel sat in her tiny apartment staring at the wall. She hadn't eaten all day. She could barely breathe without feeling watched. She didn't cry. Not because she was strong, but because her body had run out of tears. That's when the first phone call came. Unknown number. No voice, just silence. Then the second call, late at night, a whisper this time. "You think you're smart, but you don't know who you're messing with." She hung up. 10 minutes later, a rock smashed through her kitchen window. That was her warning. She didn't call the police. She already knew how that would go. Instead, she packed a small bag, took her documents, taped copies of the DNA report to the inside of her suitcase. Then she called her cousin in Bishoftu, told her she'd be coming to stay, just for a few days. Meanwhile, in the mayor's office, panic was building. Menber Getahun sat behind his polished desk, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened. His phone buzzed constantly. Advisors came in and out like frightened ants. We need to issue a denial. We should pay her off. We could say it was a setup. Plant a story about political enemies. Menbury raised his hand. Silence fell. He was a man used to control. He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He planned. We don't need to touch her, he said calmly. We just need to remind people who I am. That afternoon, he held a press conference. Cameras flashed. He wore a soft blue suit. His wife stood beside him. He looked directly into the lens. These accusations are false. I have full confidence in the justice system. I will cooperate fully. I believe the truth will come out. He bowed slightly. He looked humble. He looked sad. He looked innocent. But the DNA didn't lie. The next day, a brave reporter from a small independent station, only 24 years old, aired the story. She showed the lab. She interviewed a technician, voice hidden, face blurred, who confirmed the test was real. That same night, the reporter's car was followed. She posted a video on TikTok, her breathing heavy, looking into the camera. If anything happens to me, just know I was only doing my job. The video went viral. And finally, the country began to shift. The police, cornered by public outcry, had no choice but to move. Quietly, carefully, they requested a formal interview with Menber. He refused. A week later, the courts issued a summons. Not an arrest, not yet. But the pressure was growing. Journalists began to gather outside his compound. And in the shadows, Rahel waited. Back in Bishoftu, she sat under her cousin's injera hut, staring at the trees, watching birds move freely through the air. Do you regret it? Her cousin asked one night. Rahel didn't answer right away. She looked at her hands, rough, scarred, but still steady. No, she said. But I didn't think it would cost this much. Her cousin squeezed her hand. Justice always costs. But silence cost even more. It was a Friday morning when everything broke, but not in the way Rahel expected. She had woken up early, just after dawn, to the sound of distant church bells echoing across the quiet town of Bishoftu. The air smelled like roasted barley and wet soil. She boiled tea, wrapped herself in a shawl, and sat near the window, trying to prepare for whatever storm was coming next. But this storm wasn't outside. It was already inside her life. At 9:12 a.m., she received a call from an unfamiliar number. At first, she thought it was another threat. Her hands trembled as she answered. Rahel Tesfaye? Yes, who is this? My name is Dr. Getnet. I'm the head of the DNA analysis lab at Medsci Addis. We need to talk. Is something wrong with the results? There's been a development. He asked her to come in privately. No police, no lawyers. Just her. Rahel didn't want to go. Her cousin begged her to stay, but Rahel knew. She felt it in her bones. Something had shifted. Something was wrong. She took the afternoon minibus back to the city. The lab was quiet, clean, and cold, unlike the police station. The receptionist didn't meet her eyes. She was led through a hallway and into a small glass room. Dr. Getnet sat behind a desk. Files open, laptop glowing. He was sweating. Miss Rahel, he began. We reran the DNA, not because we doubted you, but because of new data from a legal complaint sent by Menber's legal team. We compared the sample again. It still matches Menber Getahun. Rahel nodded, confused. So what's the problem? Dr. Getnet swallowed. It also matches someone else? What do you mean? He turned the screen toward her. On it were 2 columns of genetic markers. 2 sets of names. This, he pointed, is the sample from the condom. This, he pointed again, is the DNA from Counselor Menber Getahun. Then he clicked again. And this is DNA from another man. A 98% match as well. His name is Girma Getahun. Rahel stared at the name. She didn't understand. Dr. Getnet explained slowly. They are identical twins. The truth punched her harder than the rape itself. She had spent weeks fighting for justice, for proof, for her voice to be heard, only to discover she had named the wrong twin. Her heart dropped. Her throat closed. You're saying, I accused the wrong man? Not exactly, the doctor said. But the DNA matches both. Identical twins have almost exactly the same DNA. There's no way for us to say which one was actually present in that room unless there's another type of evidence, a fingerprint, a witness, a video. Rahel's mind went blank. All this time. All the shame, all the death threats, all the media attacks, all the pain, and now they were telling her the truth was inside the DNA. But the DNA was useless. Menbear had a twin. She had never seen him. Never heard of him. He wasn't on the posters. He didn't attend the fundraiser. He didn't appear in interviews, but now his name was on the screen, Girma Gedahun. She Googled him. There was almost nothing online, just one old newspaper clipping. A blurry photo, a mention of drug trafficking 10 years ago, a man who left the country after being wrongly accused. No recent images. No social media. He was a ghost, a shadow living in the cracks of power. The next day, Rahel went back to the police with the new information. She explained what the lab had found. Showed them the identical twin loophole. They listened. They shrugged. They said, "Then it's not enough." The case lost heat. The reporters dropped the story. The public grew tired. The comments turned uglier. See? She doesn't even know who raped her. How can anyone believe her now? The case is a joke. Rahel felt like her soul was being erased. She had done everything right, collected evidence, paid for the tests, endured shame, risked her life. But now, because of a twist in biology, a twist in blood, the justice system was walking away. But Rahel wasn't done. She began to dig. Day and night. She went back to the guest house, paid the cleaning woman to talk. "You see 2 men come here? Sometimes. They look the same. Which one was here that night? I don't know. One was wearing red. Smelled like cologne." Rahel searched CCTV cameras on nearby streets. Most were broken. Some didn't record. One had a recording, but only showed a car arriving. The license plate was blurred by rain. She was running out of options. But then, a miracle. The parking lot guard at the nearby building remembered something. 2 men came that night, arguing. One said, "Just let me use the room. No one will know." The other said, "You always do this. You'll get us both killed." "Do you know which one raped me?" she asked him. The man looked nervous. "I think it was the one with the scar on his eyebrow." Rahel paused. "A scar?" The man nodded. "Yes, small but deep. Right here." He pointed above his eye. Rahel's heart started racing. She checked every photo of Menbear online. No scar. She found the one old photo of Girma, the twin, and there it was. Faint but clear, a scar, just above the right eyebrow. Now, she had something. She took it to a new lawyer. Young, brave, hungry, the kind who hadn't yet learned to be afraid. "If you can get a witness to testify that the man with the scar was there, we can file again," the lawyer said. "Will the court believe it? They'll try to ignore it. But if we bring it with noise, media, rights groups, international pressure, they'll be forced to look." Rahel breathed deeply. "Then we fight again." And so, the second war began. Not in the police station, but in the court of public truth. She posted her first video. No tears. No begging. Just her face. Her words, "I was raped. I brought the evidence." They said it was enough. Then they said it wasn't. Because 2 men share one DNA, but only one has the scar. Only one was there. "I will not stop, even if I have to bleed justice out of this land." The video exploded. People began listening again, not because she had new proof, but because she refused to vanish. It wasn't the police. It wasn't the courts. It was her voice that finally shook the system. Rahel's face, once hidden by fear, now filled millions of phone screens across Ethiopia. Her video, only 2 minutes long, had reached 3.1 million views in 1 week. Women reposted it. Young people translated it. Even some international news outlets picked it up with headlines like, "Twin DNA loophole helps rapist escape in Ethiopia." But inside Rahel's small room in Bishoftu, The world still felt cold. She had started this fight for truth. But now, she realized she was fighting for everyone who had ever been silenced. The lawyer filed a new case, this time naming Girma Getahun, the twin brother. They used the scar, the parking lot witness, and even the cleaning woman's testimony. They brought photos. They brought statements. They brought truth, but the defense came prepared. Menbera's team claimed the photo was edited. They said the witness was paid. They said the brothers were never in the same place. They accused Rahel of public defamation and political sabotage. The courtroom was tense. Wooden benches packed, windows wide open, sweat everywhere. Rahel sat on the front row, wearing a plain white scarf. She said nothing. Her silence screamed louder than their lies. Then came the day Girma appeared in court. It was the first time Rahel saw him clearly. Same face as Menber. Same height. Same voice, but not the same eyes. His eyes were colder, empty, as if nothing inside could feel guilt. She stared at him. He didn't flinch. He smiled. That was the moment she knew. She had named the right man. The trial dragged on for weeks. Arguments, objections, distractions. At one point, the defense said, "There's no physical evidence he was there. Only a witness who saw a man with a scar at night. This is not proof. This is guessing." Rahel wanted to scream, but her lawyer stood tall. "DNA brought us to two men, but a scar led us to one. If the justice system cannot distinguish between guilt and innocence when the answer is in front of them, then it is not justice, it is theater." The room went silent. Outside the court, the streets had changed. Posters of Rahel appeared on walls, drawings of her holding the evidence bag, graffiti. "Her courage is our courage." But with attention came danger. One night, after court, a motorbike followed her taxi. Two masked men tried to block the road. The driver sped away. Heart racing, they were sending a message. Stay quiet. Rahel refused. The verdict day arrived. Heavy sky. Light rain, the judge read slowly, every word like stone. Due to the lack of exclusive DNA identification between identical twins, and absence of physical video or direct evidence linking the accused to the scene of the crime. Rahel's chest tightened. This court cannot convict Girma Getahun beyond reasonable doubt. There it was. Not guilty. Rahel didn't move. Not a tear. Not a word. She stood, nodded once, and walked out. The cameras waited for her. Microphones in her face. "How do you feel? Is this the end of your fight? Do you regret it?" She looked into the lens. This is not the end. It's the beginning. Then she walked into the rain. Weeks passed. The country remained divided. Some called her a liar. Others called her a hero. Menbere stepped down to protect the party's name. Girma disappeared again. Nobody knew where. But Rahel? She kept walking. She founded a small legal support group, DNA Doesn't Feel, a place for survivors to learn their rights, store evidence, and get legal advice. She wrote a manual, in Amharic, Afan Oromo, and Tigrinya, explaining how to document rape cases even when the system fails. Her story became a case study in law, schools. She gave speeches, she trained nurses, she protected women who had no one to protect them, but she never forgot what happened and she never forgave the silence. One evening, a girl knocked on her office door. Barely 17, skinny, shaking, holding a plastic bag. Inside, another used condom. Rahel didn't ask questions, she just nodded. "Sit, we'll take care of it." They called her the woman who hunted. Justice. She didn't care about the name. She didn't care about being famous. She cared about one thing, making sure no woman ever had to walk alone into a police station with the truth in her hand and shame on her back. Walking down a crowded street in Addis, people pass by. Some smile, some stare, some whisper. She wears no makeup, no power suit, just her white scarf. Blowing in the wind, a little girl watches her walk by. The girl's mother leans down and whispers, "That's the woman who didn't stop." The girl looks up, eyes wide, inspired. Rahel disappears into the crowd. But her fight? Remains.